اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والفجر والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالوادي وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد إن ربك لبالمرصاد إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Jazakallah, Brother Mehdi, for that recitation. Continuing with the program, please welcome Brother Ali Natu for poetry in English. Please greet him with salawat.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. عباس 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 عباس. We the Shia today gather the son of Ali. We all remember. We all till dawn shall mourn together. We'll cry for the son of Haydar. Every night, every day, I'll say Abbas, 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 on your birth, Ali. on the sands you'd lie, your hands cut off, an arrow in your eye. Haydar would mourn your death, Abbas, 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 Abbas. We the Shia shall never understand how it felt for you to fall on that land, on the scorching and red hot sands, without your two right and left hands. What a sacrifice you gave, Abbas, 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 Abbas. Allah.
MashaAllah. Ali, that was a heart-wrenching recitation, MashaAllah. Brothers and sisters, tonight is the 9th of Muharram, Shab-e Ashur. After our regularly scheduled majlis, we'll have the short amal for Shab-e Ashur, followed by another majlis at around 12 a.m. This will be recited by Maulana Saghir Hussain. The masjid will remain open throughout the night for your ibadat, for your ziyarat, for your Noah Khani and Matamdari. The masjid will remain open until Fajr prayer. The program for tomorrow, Sunday, July 6th, for the day of Ashur will start at 10:30 a.m. with amal for the day of Ashur, followed by namaz-e-zohrain, followed by the majlis for the day of Ashur, followed by Faqa Shikni at around 4 p.m. Faqa Shikni arrangement for the men, please make note, is taking place at Sadiq School in the cafeteria. And for the women, the arrangements for dining are taking place in the banquet levels downstairs. The program for tomorrow night will start with namaz-e-maghribain, and then we'll have the majlis of Sham-e-Ghariba following namaz-e-maghribain. Please make note that the two majlises tomorrow, English and Urdu, will be back-to-back instead of simultaneous. So that is a change in the program for tomorrow, and both of these majalis will take place in Hazrat Abu Talib Hall. Please make note of these changes. Alhamdulillah, today we had our blood drive. It was, mashallah, very successful. We had 66 donors, mashallah, come and donate blood in the name of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. A loud salawat for our donors. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So, in the medical community, this is truly life-saving. One donation saves 3 lives. So, alhamdulillah, we saved 200 lives with the donation today, mashallah. Just a couple of notes about some of the upcoming programs. On Saturday, July 19th, Anjuman-e Naujawanan-e Akbar will have their annual Shabadari program. This will start with Namaz-e-Maghribain. There'll be Matami Anjumans and Noah Khans from throughout the United States present that evening for Matamdari. Please make note of the date, Saturday, July 19th. On Saturday, July 26th, we'll have our annual Imam Hussein Day Seminar. This will start after Namaz-e-Zohrain. There's a esteemed lineup of guest speakers that afternoon. The keynote speaker for that day is none other than Sheikh Azhar Nasser. We look forward to your participation in all of these upcoming programs. The sponsors for tonight's majalis are Dr. Aftab and Mrs. Najmi Hussain, Mr. Abbas and Mrs. Maryam Hussain, Mr. Abbas and Mrs. Samra Hassan, Zia and Saba Abbas, Mr. Salman and Mrs. Saman Raza, Zamir and Azmi Zaidi, Mr. and Mrs. Sadiq Abbas, Mr. Faiq and Mrs. Rifat Fazal, Mr. Nihal Agha and Mrs. Anjum Mirza, Mr. Sipte and Mrs. Parveen Kazmi, Mr. Shoaib and Mrs. Zakia Jafri, Mr. Shabir and Mrs. Shahnaz Jariwala, Samir and Tawqir Sheikh, Muhammad and Fizza Abbas, Mr. Sohail and Mrs. Nausheen Ahmed, the Bangash family, Mr. Ali Abbas Rizvi, Naved and Sirat Abbas, Dr. Farooq and Mrs. Sajda Bandali, Mrs. Nafis Abdi Khan, Mr. Irfan and Mrs. Zorain Ganji, Syed Mendi and Simi Kazmi, Tayyab Hassan Rizvi and Syed Zohaib Hassan Rizvi, Dr. Rizwan and Mrs. Rana Kazmi, as well as Mr. and Mrs. Syed Atar Hussain. The sponsor for the second majlis at midnight is a moment brother Bande Khuda. Kindly recite Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of the sponsors. For all of our marhumin, for those who have no one to recite Fatiha for them, there's a special request Fatiha for marhum Mushtaq Sheikh, as well as a Surah Fatiha for all of the marhumin of our volunteers, both inside, outside, also the marhumin of the Sabil team as well. Surah Fatiha. Mu'mineen, sponsorship opportunities remain available throughout the month of Muharram and Safar for the Majalis program that will continue through Tuesday. And then, inshallah, we'll have further Majalis programs in the upcoming weeks as well, which we'll announce. If anyone is interested in obtaining this immense sawab of sponsoring the Majlis of Imam Hussain, please reach out. It's a very simple process. We can help you get signed up. Also remember that Sadiq School, our full-time Islamic school, is enrolling students for the upcoming academic year. This will start in September. We have classes in early childhood education for children 2.5 to under 5 years of age, for children 5 years of age and older. We have classes from kindergarten up to 5th grade this year. So, please consider enrolling your children. This is the time to do it. Classes, inshallah, will start at the end of summer in September. As we've been reminding you throughout these nights, continue to remember Masjid-e-Ali and Sadiq School with your generous financial contributions as you have helped us throughout the year. There is an appeal to sign up for our monthly ACH deduction program. This is a very important process for us. It helps us to maintain the monthly expenses of the masjid. It's a simple process to sign up. We have volunteers at the table outside in the foyer. You can fill out a form. There's a way to do it online as well. They'll guide you with that. Remember, all donations to the masjid are tax deductible. We do have permission from the Maraja to accept the khums as well. So continue to remember the masjid with your financial contributions. Jazakallah. Also, remember there are those in our community tonight who are not well, many across the world who are going through various difficulties, including the different wars that we have going on, religious persecution, natural disasters. We've seen the flooding taking place, as well as hunger, poverty, famine. Let us pray to Allah during these blessed nights of Azad to relieve the suffering of these people. Kindly recite with me verse number 62 from Surah Namal 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء 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 اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, without any further delay, it is now my honor to invite our resident scholar, Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi, to recite tonight's Majlis for Shab-e Ashur. As you greet him with salawat, please kindly move forward so we can make room for some Mu'mineen who are still entering. Salawat.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. استعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Please say one more Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of tonight's sponsors. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إياك نعبد صراط أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الفاسفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم فليعلمن الله الذين صدقوا وليعلمن الكاذبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بيجي محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is the 10th majlis in this series of majalis that began last Thursday under the topic of understanding the objectives of Ashura and Karbala. And we divided our discussion primarily into 5 main themes, and some of the themes were discussed more than the others. And as I understand that tonight is primarily the last majlis in this series, as usually after Ashura, many people don't show up, or this is up till our stamina is as far as the majalis are concerned. So I would want to wrap up things tonight as far as this topic is concerned. Of course, by no means are we claiming that we were able to encompass and address all of the objectives of Sayyid al-Shuhada, nor are we claiming that we even comprehend and understand all the objectives of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. But nonetheless, what was discussed thus far, just a quick overview and a recap of it, that we divided the discussion into 5 main themes. The first theme spoke about the revival of the religion and reforming of the ummah. In fact, tonight's discussion, when I'll tell you the theme, you can actually put all of the first 4 themes into this last one. The first discussion was about the revival. How Imam ﷺ revived the teachings of Rasulullah, which of course the moral decay that the ummah had gone into and had forgotten the basic tenets of the religion. Imam ﷺ had to revive all those teachings. And of course, a reform was needed. A complete overhaul was needed as far as the Muslimin were concerned. And therefore, we briefly spoke about it in the light of Imam's words and his kalamat. The second discussion was then fighting oppression, tyranny, corruption, and injustice. How throughout the path from Medina to Mecca and from Mecca to Karbala, Imam ﷺ on numerous occasions stood up and he fought corruption at all levels. Even on his journey from Mecca to Karbala, while he still is in the path, in the way, he sees a caravan which was coming from Syria, which was coming from Sham, which was loaded with the goods that were being sent or were being transferred from and to Yazid. Imam ﷺ said, this is male ummat. This belongs to the people. This is usurped by Yazid, and this should be distributed amongst the community. And right away, even at that moment, Imam ﷺ pointed out the corruption, and he addressed it right there and then. The third theme that we spoke about was preserving human dignity. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. How one of the main reasons for Imams, or one of the main objectives that why Imam rose and he did this revolution and this nahda, the thawra, why Imam stood up, was to give that glory back to mankind. Give that honor and dignity back to mankind, which it had lost over the years because of this cruel leadership and the rulers. And then yesterday, we were talking about, or the past 2 nights, preserving Islam against distortion and illegitimate authority. Imagine the person who doubts in Rasulullah, Yazid that is, person who openly challenges Quran and the teachings of Quran, person who's changing the actual face of the religion of Islam, for which Rasulullah had done hard work for 23 years, the face is now being changed and the complexion is being changed. Someone had to take a stand for that, from this picture from being distorted, and by taking this stand, Imam ﷺ protected the face of Islam from being changed, or the complexions of it from being altered forever. And tonight, what we want to talk about in this last majlis in this series of majalis, of course there are 2 more majalis after Ashura, Monday and Tuesday. We'll talk about similar objectives, but not in the method and the manner that we want to conclude tonight. Last is awakening the ummah. Imam ﷺ's uprising was to awaken the sleeping giant, awaken the people who had gone into understanding that whatever is happening is okay. I can deal with it. That's fine. Let these tyrants do whatever they want to. And this is our fate. And we have to deal with it one way or the other. What can we do? What is possible as far as we're concerned? And if everybody starts to think this way, then of course, you're not going to be able to achieve anything. So Imam stood up as a voice for every single oppressed and mustada'af of that time. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to accept from us tomorrow the excuse of being what? Weak. Right? The weakness is an excuse which is not acceptable on the Day of Judgment. The ayat of Quran says, إِذَا تَوَفَّاهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَ ظَالِمِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. When the malaika take the nufus of those who had done zulm against themselves, they will ask them, why were you so weak? Or why were you in such a dire situation? إِذَا تَوَفَّاهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَ ظَالِمِي أَنفُسِهِمْ قَالُوا فِيمَا كُنْتُمْ قَالُوا كُنَّا مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. They will respond by saying that we are mustada'afin fil ard. The response that is given by the malaika at that point is, Alam takun ardullahi wasi'atan fatuhajiru fiha. Wasn't the land wide enough, the land that God has created wide enough for you to go ahead and do hijrat and protect yourself? Here, look at Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. When he sees that Medina is no longer a place for him to practice the faith, things are not in his favor if he stays in the city of Medina, what does Imam do? He gets up and he leaves. It's not easy to make that migration. That's the city where he's born and raised. That's the city where he has all his relatives. He knows the pathways of that city. He has his ma'ishat and livelihood in that city. But nonetheless, Imam leaves. Why does he leave? Because the ayat of Quran says, Alam takun ardullahi wasi'atan fatuhajiru fiha. Was the land not wide enough for you to do hijrat so that you would go ahead and practice your faith? Similarly, here is what is happening when Imam ﷺ stands out to awaken the ummah. Now, the ayat that I recited for you from Surah Ankabut, the beginning two ayat, begins with Alif Lam Mim. Huruf muqatta'at, we don't know what they mean. This is a code word between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His apostle. And we can only speculate based on some rawayat, but better not to go ahead and mess with it because that is an ilm Allah did not want us to know. Even with all the advancement, with all the work that has been done, this is something which still remains a secret. And of course, these code words and secret words are always used amongst the militaries and the armies and whatnot. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He's addressing His Prophet, He begins certain surahs with these huruf muqatta'at. He says, Alif Lam Mim. One of the reasons that ulama mention why these huruf and these abbreviated alphabets are mentioned is, number one, to show the people the marvel and the wonder that this Quran possesses. Right away, when they hear something unusual, they're all ears to it. Rasulullah is reciting these ayat and he says, Alif Lam Mim. Well, something we've never heard before. What is he about to say? This is how a speaker gathers your attention. And now you're all eyes on him and you're all ears to him. Once he gains that trust from you and you are all eyes and you're ready to listen, then he goes and gives you the message that is really needed to be given. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسِ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people assume, أَحَسِبَ, do people think that they will be left alone just because they've said that we brought Iman and they will not be tested? No, that is not the case. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested those who lived before you so that Allah will know who are those who are sadiqeen, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know those who are kadhibeen. Now, I translated it how it should be translated. فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا يَعْلَمَنَّ. So that Allah knows. The question should right away arise in your minds. Does Allah already not know? He already knows. The moment He created our souls, He knows what we're going to do. Which again begs another question. Does that mean we are forced into doing things because Allah already knows what we're going to do? No, that is not the case either. The fact that Allah's knowledge is incomprehensible for you does not force things onto you. I've given examples of this before as well. They're kind of like a physician who knows his patient. The patient comes who's diabetic, tells him that you should not eat these things or your sugar level will rise. But he knows that this person is not going to listen to me. He's still going to go ahead and consume it. Of course, this ilm of this physician is juz'i, not entirely. He's hypothetically assuming that this person, history of this person is that he's not going to pay attention to what I have said. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His ilm is not juz'i, it's kulli. He knows entirely what this person is going to do. So right away it begs the question, are we then forced into doing things that we do in this life? Where is qada and qadr? One of the greatest scholars of our era, really someone who made an impact on our fiqh, on our rajal, on our usul, and as well as tafsir. There wasn't an area where he did not touch upon and he didn't speak about. And majority of the fuqaha and the maraji that you see today in the world are all his students. I'm sure your Abadur Zahni has taken you to Ayatullah Khoi, rahmatullah alayhi. That he, majority of the maraji that we have today, they're all his students. The impact that he made on our fiqh, the impact that he made on ilm rajal, considered to be authority. And then you say, well, some ulama are experts in certain areas, but they're not experts in others. That was not the case with him. The life didn't, give him much time, but whatever time he had, he was able to embark on the journey of writing the tafsir of Quran. He only did one volume, and then he passed away. But that one volume of tafsir of Ayatul Khoi is a masterpiece. It's been translated from Arabic into many languages. It's available in Farsi, it's available in Urdu as well. And you can even search it online. He, and only he, gives this example where you and I can understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not forcing us into doing something which he already knows. So he said, imagine someone who has a stroke and his right side isn't working. Right? People have strokes. And so, for example, the right arm is no longer functional. Cannot move it. There's no functionality in it. Left works fine, but the right one doesn't work. Just paralyzed from the right side. And therefore, there comes about, some technology where doctors, by plugging in some wires onto the hand of this individual and then turning on the machine, this person now has functionality and he's able to move his arm. The doctor can turn it off, then of course there's no functionality in it anymore. The moment he turns it on now, hand is capable of moving. He says, similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this on and off switch. When the doctor turns it on, you have mobility in your hand, but what you do with your hand is your own act. You're not forced into doing something. The fact that he turns it off, you don't have the ability to move it around anymore. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this mobility, but at the same time, He has given us the freedom to do whatever we want to. Within, of course, our boundaries. And there are certain things which are humanly impossible for us to do. We're not talking about those things. But everything else that we are humanly capable of doing. So therefore, you cannot associate ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as forcing anything and making you coerced and majboor in doing something. There's some brothers on the back over there by the door. I'll ask you to get up and move over here. There's a lot of room. As people walk in, it'll be difficult for them to open the door. You're right at the door. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A lot of people behind you.
Everybody just stand up and move forward a little bit.
Allahumma salli. Allahu Akbar. Allahumma salli ala. Much better. So, this is where Imam alayhi salatu wasalam is awakening the ummah. How does he awaken the ummah? First, you have to lead from front, and he is the one who is giving this sacrifice. But Rasulullah had already mentioned this. Inna liqatl al-Husayn hararatan fi qulub al-mu'minin la tabrudu abadan. You know, it's not just everything is from Imam Hussain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also giving some an ayat over here. That the effect of Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, that there's this hararat in the hearts of the mu'mineen which will never be extinguished. And that is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hearts beat for Imam Hussain. So this awakening that he wants to cause in the ummah, which is the fifth discussion or the fifth theme in this discussion of understanding the objectives of Imam Hussain. I'll give you a few examples as to what are some of the elements of awakening. And these are very basic examples. You can easily relate to them, and I see a large number of younger kids that are attending this majlis, so that keeping that in understanding as well. That one of the things that awaken your conscience is the unexpected events that happen around you, or painful incidents, unpleasant events that happen around you. When you go through a painful incident, I have personally seen many who suddenly lost a loved one. There's a complete transformation in that person. They had nothing to do with religion. They didn't want anything, to do with salat or psalm or any of that stuff. Maybe to the extent didn't even believe in it. And that was partially because of how the parents raised the child. It had a lot to do with it. But when the same father died, when the same mother passed away, it was an unpleasant and painful incident in their life, transformed them completely, for the better. Right away now they're more inclined to learn about the religion. They're more into the religious practices. Not for the sake of, because it's wajib, but because of the bigger picture of why some of these things are wajib upon us. We talked about that in the past few nights as well. The falsafa and the philosophy of many of the amal that we perform. It's not just the object that, it is obligatory upon us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this wajib so that I pray. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this obligatory so then I perform this psalm, or I go to Hajj, for example, or I give zakat or khums, for example, because it's a wajib upon me. If that is merely the reason why you're doing these things, then you might be fulfilling your wajib, but you're not benefiting anything from it. Therefore, someone actually from the crowd asked in the past nights that, Maulana, can we speak a little bit in your lectures about why part of it as well? Nietzsche said, if our youth can find out why we must live, they'll understand how we should live. If the why part is understood, then how it becomes very easy. You and I, as I said, we need to learn the why part of Karbala. How it happened is something which is explained every single year. How Karbala happened, how Imam left, he came to Makkah, he came to Karbala. Now from the 2nd of Muharram things started to go down. And from the 7th of Muharram the water was cut off. food was cut off, for example. And then on the 10th of Muharram, the night of Ashur that we are in, and 10th of Muharram, how it began with Adhan Ali Akbar, and then the Ma'araka starts. One by one, all of the companions start giving their sacrifices. They attain martyrdom. Then by the time of Dhuhr, majority of the companions are already martyred. And then it starts the family of Imam Hussein, one by one, they give their sacrifice until we get to Asr Ashur, and of course, the Shahadat of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And then Sham-e Ghariba, and we talk about it. The cycle goes around. So the how part, I'm sure by now, if you are 14, 15-year-old, you were old enough to know this if you've been listening to Majalis for the past 3 or 4 years with full understanding. You know, when you're 12, 11, 12-year-olds, you're understanding all of these things. So you've been listening to Majalis for the 3, 4 years now, you know you're well versed in the how part of it. And then as it is, so much awareness through the social media, YouTube, lectures, and all that stuff, you've listened a great deal. But the why part still remains unanswered for many of us. You know, some of our scholars said if people can understand why Karbala happened, they can keep from future Karbalas from taking place. If you understand why it happened, you can learn from it. And when you learn from it, you will prevent any such future incidents from happening. What do the governments do? When some unpleasant event happens in the country, right away, there's a study, there's investigation, and they get into the bottom of it with all of the resources that they have. Why are they studying it? Number one, to bring people to justice. Number two, to learn from it and not repeat the same mistake again. And therefore, it is important for us to understand why Karbala happened, why Imam ﷺ stood up. Hence our theme, understanding the objectives of Karbala. So when unpleasant events, painful incidents strike you, right away it brings about this consciousness in your life. It kicks you out of the negligence and the heedlessness that you were in all along. So sometimes, the natural incidents that happen. Sometimes, earthquakes that take place. Once again, there are people in the back. If I can just ask them to quickly make their way in and settle down. And if there's still a lot of room over here, so I don't know, we can fill over here, right here, left here. There's still some chairs empty. One more loud salawat, please. One more loud salawat, please. Ya Ali. Ya Ali. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So these incidents serve as, speed bumps for us. You're driving down on a road and you forget that, it's the speed limit over here, and then you hit the speed bump. The moment you hit the speed bump, now you realize, oh, I should have been going slower. It's a residential area, for example. This is what these incidents actually end up doing. The natural disasters that happen, if you've been in one, the earthquakes, for example, if you've lived in a part of the world where earthquakes have happened, and that really changed your life. I remember 2005, there were massive earthquake in the northern part of Pakistan. And because of that, a lot of families were lost. And one of my close friends and teacher as well, Marhum, who passed away a couple of years ago, he established an orphanage. And he brought 50 orphans from there. And then, it transformed the lives of these orphans, number one. But secondly, I had the opportunity to visit and meet these orphans a few years ago. Well, this has been a long time now. And when I sat with them, there were different ages at that time when I had gone, 10 to 15 to 20 years old, different ages. Each and every single one had this heart-wrenching story, what they had gone through, the pain of orphanage that they had faced, both parents dead in earthquake, and now they're being raised by strangers, for example. You don't find that love and you don't find that mercy and compassion. But there are people who go out of their way to provide this for these people. I spent one afternoon, and I can tell you that I have never felt such comfort and such satisfaction doing anything else in my life. That few hours that I spent with these orphans, riwayat mention, talk about a great deal when it comes to taking care of orphans. And there's so much merit of taking care of the orphans that these orphans, anyone can send money for them. Anyone can send, and that is good. You need to do that. So not undermining that. We still need to provide for them. You can provide for their food, you can provide for their shelter, you can provide for their education. But what they're really lacking is a fatherly figure who sits with them and shows that love and compassion, even for a couple of hours. So I would encourage all of you, if you are in any capacity, to go ahead and visit orphanages. Do so. If it's back home in your own countries, do so. Take out some time from your busy schedules when you go for ziyarat, or even when you go for ziyarat of Iraq or Iran or other places. There are a lot of orphanages over there, especially in Iraq. I had the opportunity to do the same thing with Zahara Trust. I visited an orphanage. The satisfaction that I personally got, and I'm being selfish over here saying satisfaction for myself, but nonetheless, all those riwayat that you hear in regards to taking care of the orphans. Prophet of Islam said, one who puts their hand on the head of an orphan out of love and mercy and compassion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon you the amount of hair that you touch, houses in paradise. That's one incentive. Now, of course, that's not my intention to go and encourage you. But nonetheless, you see, Prophet said, Ana wa kafilul yatim ka hataini fil jannah. Me and the one who takes the custody of a yatim will be like this on the day of in paradise in Jannah. Meaning, if there is, pardon me of saying this, if there is any shortcut to Jannah, is to take care of an orphan, is to provide for an orphan. And those who are doing it in their capacity, I encourage them to go ahead and continue, and encourage those who haven't looked into this area. That is something where you hear, and I sat with these people, these kids, someone telling me their story. I have not gone through half or a quarter or 1/10 of the turmoil and trial and tribulation that these children had gone through in my entire life. And their life is a quarter of my life, for example. Yet, heart-wrenching stories. When you hear these stories, then you look at and reflect on Karbala. And there were orphans of Imam Hussain in Karbala. There were children who were made orphans. The kids of Habib ibn Mazahir. You hear the story of Habib's children. How Habib's son was after the head of his father when it arrived in Kufa. He went and he took the head of his father from the enemy's hands. That's the last sign of my father. And of course, our fourth Imam looks at his own father's head on the spear, while Habib's son is taking away his father's head so he can pay last respects to it. Imam Zainul Abidin couldn't do that at that moment. So that's number one. These natural disasters that happen, what do? They bring about this change and reform in you. And therefore, from this aspect, it also resolves one other issue that we sometimes question. Why so much turmoil? Why so many tribulations? Why so many problems in the world today? Guess what? These earthquakes, these floods, while they could cause massive destruction, it serves on a positive note as a means of awakening your conscience. It brings you out of the slumber that you were in. So that's number one as far as the painful incidents of your life. So don't look at, if you go through some painful incidents in your life, that you are doomed and you're the worst and, God doesn't care for you and the world hates you, your parents don't like you. No. These are only there for you to come out of and awaken your conscience. Number two, that the element that awakens our conscience is studying the history of the previous nations. Quran talks about it on numerous occasions. You know, when you look at all of these wonders in the world, all of these, the pyramids and the graveyards, the silent graveyards, they're not silent, they're actually vocal. They're speaking to you. That's why so much emphasis is placed on visiting the graveyard. Our brothers, for some reason, think that when you go to a graveyard and you pray for the deceased, you know, or you seek shafa'at from the awliya over there, it is something which is a bid'ah. No, nothing wrong with that. It's all sanctioned. Rasulullah did the same thing for his shuhada as well when he used to visit them in his lifetime. All we're doing is following the sunnat of our Prophet. And therefore, no matter what anyone says, we don't need to worry about it. But nonetheless, these silent graveyards where people are laying in there, deceased for many, many years, they're speaking to you. Imam ﷺ was returning back from Siffin. He stops at the graveyard and he talks to the inhabitants of the graveyard. Of course, it's Imam. Imam is able to conversate with them. He speaks to them. He tells them, you know, oh, the inhabitants, Ahl al-Diyar, or the inhabitants of these graves, these dark places. Let me tell you, the family that you had left behind has moved on. The houses that you have left behind are inhabited by other people. The wealth that you had left behind has already been spent. The spouse that you left behind, for example, Imam said it, has remarried. This is the news from here for you. What is the news that you have from us? And then Imam said, if they could respond, they would say, Zadur Ra at-Taqwa. The best thing that they could tell you is taqwa. If you want anything from this worldly life, well, we're telling them all your belongings are occupied by someone else. Your wealth, your family, your children, your properties, everything, someone else is using it. That which you spent your entire life building, someone else is using it. What is your news? You say, well, khairuz zad at-taqwa. The best of the path and your provision, khairuz zad, your provision is taqwa. That's what they would respond by saying. And then people said, Imam, can they talk? Can you hear them? Or can they hear you, for example? Imam said, yeah, they hear me better than you hear me. I'm speaking to you directly. You are not paying attention. But when I speak to them, they are paying attention. They're listening to me. So these silent graveyards, the lives of the people that lived before us, history is a means of awakening our conscience. Quran talks about it when it says, فَاعْتَبَرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ. Take ibrat from it. Take lesson from it. Who? Oh, the people of insight. Those who are ulil abrar. And another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, encourage, أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الَّذِينَ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. When you travel, do you not see the end and the aqibat of those who lived before you? This should not be just means of your, vacationing and enjoyment. When you do travel to different parts of the world, it should awaken you. Sometimes it's very difficult to wrap your head around when you speak to some of these atheists, and especially if they are physicians. You cannot be an atheist and physician at the same time. In my mind, that's a crime. Because every single thing as a physician, from anatomy you learn, from the human body that you learn, the marvels of it, the wonders of it, expands your mind, opens your mind about how intricate the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Just take this heart. I've been giving the example of heart. 30, 40 years ago, we only had one heart specialist, cardiologist. Now within this heart, you have 50 different specialists. One looking at from one side of the heart, the other the other aspect of the heart, and different other specializations that have come about. I don't want to be speaking in front of the physician sitting in front of me. But you understand how as we are progressing, now we're understanding the human heart better. And we're understanding the intricacies of it. And that is something which is mesmerizing. How can that come into existence without a wise creator who created and placed it in our hearts, in our bodies? So therefore, this is only for those who are ulul abrar, those who are with insight. Number 3, quickly, awakening begins with awareness of Islam and comprehensiveness. When you understand Islam, Islam is worth studying, brothers and sisters. You and I take it for granted. We need to properly and thoroughly study this religion. Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib said in Nahjul Balagha, the very first khutbah, we all get to read the very first khutbah. We may not know what Imam said in the 50th khutbah, but the first khutbah, alhamdulillah, all of us get to open it. What did Imam say? Awwaluddin ma'rifatuh. The first and foremost of this deen. I'm not encouraging you. Imam is encouraging you. The first and foremost of this deen is what? Ma'rifat of this deen. Recognition of this deen. Knowledge about this deen. Don't have a mundane understanding of this deen. Hearsay from there and there. That has done a lot of damage. And inshallah, in the nights to come, I will talk about some of the doubts that our brothers in Islam have about us. They think we believe in Tahrif al-Quran. They believe that Shias believe in a Quran which is muharraf, fabricated, changed, altered. And Shias believe in a Quran that is not 30 juz, 40 juz. You can Google it. I've been telling you. You can chat GPT, you can ask AI. What is the 40 juz Quran of the Shias that they use? You go look in the back over there, in the racks that we have the Quran, you won't find a 40 juz Quran there. But you'll find a superficial 40 juz Quran online. And the worst part is, they believe thoroughly and religiously that this is our aqidah. That has to be this doubt has to be dispelled. It has to be explained to them. No such thing. But there is a 40 juz Quran, by the way. What do you find in it? You find the 30 juz, and then you find in it Dua Kumail. You find in it, for example, Dua Joshan Kabir. You find in it Dua Mashlul. You find in it Dua Al-Qama, Dua Nudba, Dua Samat, Dua Yastashir. All of these ad'iyah of Ma'sumin, you find them in this 40 juz Quran. They compiled it together. Someone really had time in their possession to go through the trouble to go put it together and bring out this 40 juz Quran, label it, Shias believe in it. Now, while they were causing this mischief, I don't blame them for thinking that Dua Kumail is part of Quran. It's Kalam Ali ibn Abi Talib. Anyone can doubt. When you look at the Kalam of Ali, you'll start doubting, is it Kalam of Ali or is it Kalam of Allah? I don't blame them. When they read some of the du'as, they are so marvelous and masterpiece that it made them believe that this could be Quran. By mistake, they thought it was Quran. Because of the closeness that it has, the words of Ma'sumin, how close it is to word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They think it's Quran. So that is a doubt that we need to clarify for them. They think that we believe Quran was revealed wrongfully to Rasulullah. Na'udhu billah. Should have been sent on Imam Ali. That's what they believe. We don't. They believe it about us. Where did these doubts come from? And then it's something which they hold conviction about it. It's not something which is mere rumor. There's conviction about it. That is true. That is the case. And there's no doubt about it. Let me come back to my discussion. First and foremost, about this deen is what? Ma'rifat. If you don't have the ma'rifat of your own deen, how are you going to be able to dispel some of these challenges and the disputes and the discord and the doubts created by the enemies? So therefore, ma'rifat of deen is needed. Islam is not just for personal piety, that by with this Islam you become a very pious individual. Islam is a complete code of conduct. It deals your economy, it deals your iqtisad, it deals with your mu'amilat. Do's and don'ts are part of it, yes, but majority of it is not do's and don'ts and the halal and haram and the ibadat. There's mu'amilat. Every aspect of your life is covered in the fiqh of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent it. Not someone sitting in one corner of the world and thought of it themselves and put it together. Of course, they'll miss some things out. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending it, He's not going to miss anything out of it. Fourth thing that is needed to achieve, or one of the elements of awakening, I mentioned those doubts. Those doubts need to be clarified so that we can bring about unity in the ummah. This unity can be attained when we can remove these doubts. They think that we believe, or they believe that we curse the Sahaba. That has to be clarified for them. We do not curse the Sahaba. We do not believe in the adalat of Sahaba. We don't believe that all the Sahaba are adil and just. And therefore, when we criticize their amal and their actions and their political moves, we're not doing tawheen to them. Don't translate our criticism to a man who made political errors, who himself is saying, I made errors. When we criticize them for their political mishaps, we're not doing their tawheen. We have the right to criticize them. That's what sometimes translates as tawheen-e-sahaba. And right away say, well, if anyone is blasphemous towards the ashab, that person is kafir. Number one, that is not true. Not in the Sunni Islam, nor in the Shia Islam. Blasphemy against the Sahaba is no such thing. Didn't exist in the time of Rasulullah, because they were, mortals who could make mistakes. And when someone can make mistake, they're prone and they're allowed to be criticized. And therefore, we make a distinction between the companions with Ahlul Bayt. Again, as I said, these are some of the things that we will talk about in the nights to come, and to remove these doubts from them. Once that is done, some sort of unity can be achieved in the ummah. So awakening requires overcoming this sectarianism, the tribalism, the nationalistic aspect of the religion that has somehow crept into our ranks. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ عَادَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of you in congregation, and do not cause any tafraqa and disunity and discord. Before we look at this ayat for the entire Muslim ummah, first we need to look at it for within our own sect. How we have divided within our own ranks, within this own madhab Shia. We need this ayat more than any other place. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. It's not a recommendation in Islam or in Quran. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, ask any linguistic, it's an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nahi, which means it's haram. وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. If anyone causes tafriqa, if anyone causes fitna, it's ashaddu min al-qatl. It's worse than taking the life of an individual. Now, this comparison is given just to gross you out how bad it is. Otherwise, taking life is just as worse or not. So, moving quickly, last but not least, is the awaited Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. In this awakening, we must remain connected to Imam of our time. You know, the first point that I had mentioned, and I'll bring you to a close with it, the unpleasant incidents that happen. Amongst those unpleasant incidents, one of them is death. And therefore, so much emphasis is mentioned on contemplating on death. You know, when you worry about committing a sin, think of death. When you worry about making a mistake, think about death. Mentioning death, remembering death is mentioned so much in the Kalam of Ma'sumin. Someone stole Bahlol's hat, ran away. Bahlol, known for his charismatic personality and his unwitting, he was so genius. He went to a graveyard and he sat over there. Someone said, the man is walking around in the streets wearing your hat and you're sitting in the graveyard? He said, no matter where he goes, he's going to come over here. Eventually, he's going to come over here. Death will bring him over here. He's not going to run away from this grave. So why should I run after him? Well, he's going to come right to me. You know, our elders, scholars, they have given an example of humans. They say, insan is someone who is hanging in this well, holding on to this rope. Outside of the well are these wild beasts waiting for him to come up on top. And on the bottom of the well, on the depths of it, there are these snakes. They're waiting for him to fall down. And then there are two mice, one black and one white, which are chewing onto this rope that he's hanging on to. And all this while, he knows the beasts out there, the snakes on the bottom, the mice chewing onto the rope. What is he busy doing? Licking and eating this honey, which is, of course, coupled with dust and poison as well. And while the honeybees are stinging as he's trying to lick onto this honeybee. He said, what is this? This is the misal of this dunya. He said, you and I are holding on to this rope. Rope is dunya. The wild beasts is our death. Because when we go out there, they'll kill us. The snakes on the bottom is our grave. The black and white mice are day and night, which are chewing away our life. All this while, what am I busy doing? Trying to utilize the luxuries of this life, which is, these pleasures are coupled with the dust and the poison. And while these honeybees are giving me a hard time, as they become the obstacle in the way of it. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسِ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think that they will not be tested just because they say we have brought Iman? You know, if you want to look at the tests, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it in Surah Baqarah, ayat number 155. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَالنَّقْصِ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ. We will test you, no doubt about that. بِشَيْءٍ, from these things. Khawf, fear. Ju', hunger. Naqsim min al-amwal, with your wealth, shortening of your wealth. Wal awlad, wal anfus. Thamarat, Allah doesn't use the word awlad. Thamarat, and your nufus. Thamarat here means your awlad, your children. And your nafs is, of course, your life. We will test you with these things. And those who are sabir, they will be saying, we are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to Him we shall return. No one here can say that I've been tested with all of these things. You may have been tested with hunger. You may have been tested with awlad. You may have been tested with finances. You may have been tested with fear, but not all of them. Your nafs is still intact. You haven't been tested with that yet, right? But if you want to see all of these tests all together in one place, look no further than Karbala. You find them all there. Tonight is the night of Ashura. This is a very difficult night. We mentioned in the past nights the difficulty of this night. So I'm not going to go in that detail. You'll hear the Masaib tomorrow as well. And these Masaib will be repeated. That Imam, when he was making rounds on the night of Ashura, Imam stopped at one tent where he heard the cry of a lady. Imam goes into this tent. This was the tent of Hazrat Rubab. Lady Rubab, wife of Imam Hussein, who is mother of Bibi Sakina and Hazrat Ali Asghar. You know what Imam heard? The cries of this lady. She wasn't crying that Imam Hussein will be killed tomorrow. She wasn't crying that other family members will be killed tomorrow. The reason she was crying is because she doesn't have any sacrifice to give as far as her children are concerned. That's the reason for her cry. She's worried that her son is only 6 months old, who could barely walk. How is he going to go to the maqtal? His daughter is 4 years old. Jihad is not wajib on her. So who is she going to give as sacrifice? That's her worry. Now you know the hearts of the women in Karbala. They're not worried about loss. They're worried about lack of loss. Imam Hussein walks into the tent of Rubab and tells her, "Oh Rubab, do not undermine the sacrifices of your children. Your 6-month-old will give a sacrifice which many adults will not be able to give. Your daughter will give a sacrifice which will topple the government of the city. So don't worry about not having a sacrifice." Bibi Rubab was hoping to hear that, but now she's probably wondering how my 6-month-old will go to the maqtal. Comes the day of Ashur, everybody has been martyred. All the companions, and even Hazrat Abbas has been martyred. All of the Banu Hashim. Imam ﷺ is alone, and one Bimar Imam, his son Hazrat Sajjad. It is mentioned that Imam Hussein, when he raised the istighatha of Hal min Nasirin Yansuruna, I'll mention the 3 effects, but only one tonight. The 2, inshallah, tomorrow. One of the effects of Hal min Nasirin Yansuruna was that Imam started to hear the cries of the ladies from the tent where Ali Asghar was. Imam rushes towards that tent. He arrives in that tent and he says, "Oh Zainab, what has happened?" She said, "Oh Hussein, the moment you said Hal min Nasirin Yansuruna, the 6-month-old Ali Asghar threw himself from the cradle." As if he's saying, "Baba, labbaik. Hussein, labbaik. Labbaik ya Hussein, I'm ready for you." Imam Hussein says, "Nawilani, give me my son in my hands." Imam Hussein takes Ali Asghar in his hands. As he's about to walk out, some of the women start questioning, "Oh Hussein, where are you taking Ali Asghar?" Because they have known that anyone who has gone to Maqtal thus far, they have not come back alive. What business a 6-month-old has in the Maqtal? Imam says, "No, I'm only going to get some water for him." Imam takes Ali Asghar, he brings him to Maqtal. He brings him out and he speaks to Qawm Ashqiya. He says to them, "Your fight is with me. What has this 6-month-old done to you? He hasn't had a drink of water. He hasn't had anything to eat. eat in 3 days. When you come to this Majlis Azab, especially my sisters who have come with their young children with them, majority of the kids are staying with them. When they bring their little ones, the 6-month-old, a year old, the 2 years old, they bring water for them, they bring milk for them. When the child who becomes restless in the majlis and all of a sudden he starts to cry, they go ahead and give them water, they go ahead and give them milk because it is available for them. But for the last 3 nights, Rubab cannot afford to give any of that. She doesn't have water or any food, any solid food or any milk to provide to Ali Asghar. She could not do any of that. Imam brings Ali Asghar. He places him on the ground and he says, if you think I want water for myself, here my son is in front of you. You come and go ahead and quench his thirst. And then Imam says something to this 6-month-old who was understanding every command of his Maula. Oh Ali Asghar, you should also give your last ultimatum. Ali Asghar understands. He rubs his dry tongue onto his lips. This was a scene which made many of these enemies cry. Some of them couldn't even bear to see this scene. They turned their faces crying and weeping. Umar Saad understands. This is bringing inqilab into the hearts of Ashqiya and his folks. He says to Hurmula, Iqta kalam al-Husayn. Oh Hurmula, cut off the kalam of Hussein. In other words, kill Ali Asghar. Hurmula, who was known to be the best of the shooters, he is the one who shot the arrow that pierced through the mashka and the water skin of Hazrat Abbas. He takes this 3-pronged arrow out. These 3-pronged arrows were large. They were used primarily for adults, men who were big, not for 6-month-old. He draws this arrow as he's listening to the command of his commander, but then his hand starts to shake. He misses the target in some riwayat. Umar Saad says, oh Hurmula, if anyone asks me who's the best shooter in all of Kufa, I would say you. Why is it that you're missing? Why is your hand shaking? Maybe some riwayat mention that Hurmula responded that every time I draw an arrow, there's a lady that's looking at me. There's a lady that is looking at me from far distance as if saying, this is my 6-month-old. What business does he have? Ajrukum Allah. May Allah give you no sorrow, no grief except the sorrow of Ahlul Bayt. The third try, he shoots an arrow that goes and pierces through the head of Ali Asghar. The blood gushes out. Hussein picks up Ali Asghar in his hands. Riwayat mentioned that the arrow pierced through one ear and came out through the other. Yes, it was painful for him. I would say Imam Hussein saw many difficult things throughout the day on the day of Ashur. One of the most difficult things was to remove the dagger from the heart of Ali Akbar. But there was nothing bigger than removing this arrow from the head of Ali Asghar. Imam removed it. The blood gushes out. Imam alayhi salatu wassalam preserves the blood. He comes back. Narration mentioned he is the only shaheed for whom Imam dug a grave. He buried him without showing it to anyone, knowing what it would be done after we were all killed. But some riwayat mention Imam Hussein comes to the tents and he says, oh Rubab, I have brought your amanat back. The little Sakina, not knowing what has happened, comes running out and says, Baba, Ali Asghar was more aziz to you. You gave water to him. You quenched his thirst while your daughter is still thirsty. Imam removed the daman of Abba to show the bloodied body. Ya Hussein.
Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Abbas, 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 Abbas. Abbas, 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 Abbas. Hussein cried out, my brother, why did you have to leave me? You left Sakina thirsty. Your alum she cannot see. When they will start to chase her, her earrings will be pulled out, waiting for you to answer. That's when Sakina will shout, Abbas, 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 Abbas. When they will tie Zainab's hands, they will drag her through the sands. She will say, where's my brother? Her face they will uncover. Tears will fall from her eyes, and Zainab will start to cry. Her voice won't call for Hussein. Zainab will cry out your name, Abbas, 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 Abbas. Without you, my back's broken. Without you, I'm all alone. I will look for you, brother, when I will take my Asghar, and when my son will be slain, when I will feel the most pain. That is when I will scream out for help, then I will call out, Abbas, Abbas. Into battle when I went, and I looked back to the tents. Zainab was looking at me with our whole family. Abbas, my dear brother, now there is no protector. The further I went away, the louder they start to say, Abbas, 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 Abbas. I was bleeding from my veins. They set the tents on fire. As I was standing my last, I remembered you, Abbas. As a sword starts to strike me, I looked towards your body. I heard your name from the skies. It was my mother who cried, Abbas, Abbas. Abbas, 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 Abbas. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں میرے لاڈلے کہاں ہو میرے لاڈلے کہاں ہو سینے تمہیں لگاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں تیرے جھولے کو سکینہ رو رو کے چومتی ہے تجھے گھر میں ڈھونڈتی ہے تیری موت کی خبر میں کیسے اسے سناؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں بیٹا تمہارا قاتل میرے سامنے کھڑا ہے جانے کیوں ہنس رہا ہے چادر بھی لٹ چکی ہے منہ کس طرح چھپاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں میری جان جا رہی ہے یہ سوچ سوچ اصغر اس پھول سے گلے پر یہ تیر کیسے جھیلا بہنوں کو کیا بتاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں جب رات ہوگی رن میں ہو جائے گا اندھیرا ڈرنا نہیں ہے بیٹا دادی کہیں گی تم سے آ میں تجھے سلاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں تم رات کو ہمیشہ سنتے تھے ماں سے لوری اب نیند آتی ہوگی پھر گود میں لٹا کر ناد علی سناؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں. حسین حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین. محمد السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا نبی اللہ، السلام علیک یا صفوت اللہ، السلام علیک یا حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیک یا ابا عبداللہ، السلام علیک یا ابن رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا ابن امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیک یا ابن سید الوصیین، السلام علیک یا ابن فاطمۃ الزہراء سیدۃ نساء العالمین. فلعن اللہ امتا قتلتک، ولعن اللہ امتا ظلمتک، ولعن اللہ امتا سمعت بذلک فرضیت بہ. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. السلام علیک یا غریب الغرباء، السلام علیک یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام علیک یا سلطان العرب والعجم، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. السلام علیک یا صاحب العصر والزمان، الامان الامان من فتن الزمان، السلام علیک یا خلیفۃ الرحمن، السلام علیک یا شریک القرآن، عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسہل اللہ تعالی مخرجک وظہورک وجعلنا من اعوانک وانصارک وشیعتک ومحبیک. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ.
اللہم کل ولیک الحجت ابن حسن صلواتک علیہ وعلی آبائہ فی هذه الساعة وفی کل ساعة ولیا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودلیلا وعینا حتی تسکنہ ارضک طوعا وتمتعہ فیہا طویلا برحمتک یا ارحم الراحمین. اللہم صلی علی